trusting God with what we have, right? So I like to begin off with a question. Have you ever looked at a situation and thought, I don't have enough, whether it's, not enough money, enough time, energy, or ability, or faith, is there any situations that you've ever thought of that? Robert, do you have any situations that you didn't have enough, maybe like a test? I don't have time to study for this test. Yeah? Yes? I'm sure all of us have been through situations where, where we didn't have enough, we thought that we weren't enough for it, Sometimes life makes us feel like, what we have isn't enough. And I like to sort of like talk about this through one of the stories in the Bible, which talked about a situation where there was not enough things. So the story is the story of Jesus and the 5 loaves of bread with 2 fishes, where there wasn't enough breads and loaves and fishes. We're gonna talk about basically how Jesus handled that situation, and what we could do with our faith. So if you would like to, if you guys can read along with me through John 6:1-5, we're just going to be through the entire story. So, sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, that is the Sea of Tiberias, and a great crowd of people followed him, because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. Then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover festival was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming towards him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, "It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite." Another one of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will they go among so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. When they all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted." So we gathered them and filled 12 baskets and the 12 pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. So we'll start with some questions about the story. So, where are they? Where are they? Do you know? No? Does anyone know where they are right now? It's generally, what? On the beach? Yeah. So they're by on the mountainside near the Sea of Galilee. And how many people? If you guys remember, how many people were there? Yeah, about 5,000. You're correct. About 5,000, more than 5,000 men, possibly over 10,000 people. Including women and children who were there. And what problem did they have? Yeah. Exactly. They didn't have enough, there was not enough food for everyone to go around. With there only being around 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. So, the disciples saw a huge problem. What did Jesus see? I think Jesus saw an opportunity of faith, right? So, what we can learn from this, what this story shows with faith and God, it shows us about 3 things. One, that God can use what seems too small, right? God provides more than enough, and that little is much, when God is in it. So, going over the first point of how God can use what seems too small, So first, what did the boy have? What's the amount of food that they had? 5 loaves of bread. Yes, they had the 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fishes. Yeah, and was it enough? Of course, it wasn't enough. It was enough, but the boy gave it anyways. I think what this says, the truth is that God doesn't need a lot. This is what the showcase is that God doesn't need a lot. He needs what you are willing to give. So you may think that oftentimes that maybe you're not talented enough, you're not smart enough, or that you're too young, or you don't read enough of the Bible, that you just don't have enough. That what you have right now is too small. But truth is that it's okay. God uses what you have. I showed in this story. These 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. They have to feed enough for the whole, the 5,000 people around. And I think this can definitely apply to a lot of our lives, right? Where, yeah, as you say, that we're not we might think that we're not smart enough, right? So you don't have enough to contribute to the church, right? That you don't have that you think you just don't have really anything, that you don't you don't read enough, you're not fit for it, right? But that's okay. For me, for the church band, at the time when I sort of joined the church band, I was like a sixth grader or something. I was very young, around 12 years old. Maybe actually I was more 10, I think. Yeah, and I thought I wasn't ready enough to join or really play for the whole crowd. That I wasn't enough. I didn't have enough to contribute, right? But I guess God showed us that God showed me that that it was very little, that maybe I wasn't as good, that just doing something is enough, right? And yeah, as it is again. Yeah. Point 2 in the story is that God provides more than enough. We saw in the story that everyone ate, everyone was satisfied. Not one person was hungry, and even so, there were 12 baskets left over. Yep. This demonstrates that God's supply is greater than our shortage. That disciples there, they saw that there was a lot of food, and yet Jesus saw there was more than enough. And the miracle happened when the food was placed in Jesus' hands. I think this speaks to our faith. Sometimes we might think that what we have is as I said not enough, right? That perhaps we're not smart enough to go into some of our favorite subjects, or do the things that we love, because we're just not talented enough. Oftentimes people, we see that we compare each other's to others, that we see someone do maybe for I don't know, maybe for a school subject, right? You think you're really good at mathematics, and you see your friend who just keeps scoring 100, and you're really down or something like that. You don't feel very good, but you are enough, But I think what this does showcase that we should place our faith, and our trust in Jesus, right? Perhaps maybe let me think that that we're just a failure, that we can't continue because we can't, we're not enough. We don't we're not smart enough. Maybe what is it? Most of you guys are young, so most of it is school that that we just are not enough compared to others, right? I think what this story tells, with 5 loaves, 2 fishes, right? That when placed in Jesus' hand, he was able to create all this food, and there was an abundance. 12 baskets left over, and there's enough to just feed everyone with with leftover. So I think when we encounter like these situations of feeling like we don't have enough, right? We should place, you know, place our abilities in Jesus' hand. God always does have a plan, so it might feel like not enough, right? But I think we should place our by placing our faith, in God's hands, our problems, our giving what we have, our like abilities, right? That He is able to create more, and provide more, and we have to trust in that process. Yep. And the third point is about was it? Yeah, little is much when God is in it. So you saw what was there, right? There's about 5 loaves, 2 fishes. As I said, so many times, right? And then yet thousands were fed with the 12 left over. How? This was done through Jesus and God. When God is involved, small things become powerful, right? As I said before, right? Allowing your abilities, right? With my ability to play for the church band, right? Even though it started very small, I wasn't very good and such, right? But through placing my faith through God, I keep just like showcasing that ability to God. I slowly improved, right? And I was I'm like good enough to like I just like stand on the stage and play for everyone like nowadays compared to like before, right? So yeah, as a showcase, when you place your abilities, just placing your abilities through God, despite maybe not seeing very strong or your abilities are very strong, it's just that through God and through Jesus, like in this story, that your abilities can become very powerful. And it isn't always about, isn't always about like I guess like your abilities being like the best or being super, super strong. But just having that just by placing it through there, I think says a lot and it does a lot. And it really helps a lot. Like let me think. Like perhaps maybe in your you think about like maybe in your group projects or anything like that, maybe you feel like you are like providing enough, right? But it's always those small things that really like add to it, basically. That you think of it as like contributing to a whole, right? Every little bit really does help, right? And it is basically here with the same message, that these small things, become powerful in essence, right? So, what is, your 5 loaves and 2 fishes? What is that thing that you want God to grow? And, well, yeah, what is that? Yeah, what is your 5 loaves? A small lack of faith, a small talent, a small opportunity, a small act of kindness. But it's you. What do you think is your 5 loaves and 2 fishes? Yeah, you. Yeah. Robert, what is your 5 loaves? Something that you want to grow, maybe? More opportunities? A small opportunity? Do you have like an example of an opportunity? Or like, not really? Like maybe something that you could, something that you can help contribute, I don't know. To like the church or something? I don't know. Just any small abilities, like that you think isn't enough. Maybe God can grow. Play guitar? Play guitar? Oh, that's a good example. That's a good example. I guess so. I guess so. Let me think. Let me call. Abby, do you have what is your 5 loaves and 2 fishes? Just anything like maybe something that you just want to grow. Maybe I don't know, like your math skills or something. I don't really know. Yeah. Your grades? I guess so. Yeah, yeah. I think that could be it. Your grades and such. Right. God can do more with it than you think. Right. So we should put our faith and our abilities through God. We saw that he was able to grow these five loaves and two fishes. He's able to grow our abilities. With it, and he can do a lot with just a little. Right. Even though it might feel like it's not enough, right? You can do a lot with it. So reflection, what impossible situations, are you facing right now? What have you been holding back from God? And do you trust Him with what you have, even if it's small? So any situations that you guys are facing right now that you think is like impossible? I know you got your medical school, your medical school situation right now. But yeah. you know, do you trust him with what you have? Maybe you trust him. Maybe you think it isn't enough. I know you'd be talking about your what is it? Maybe yeah, your MCAT score. Maybe your qualifications for all that kind of stuff. Your what is it? You said you don't have enough work experience or something like that for high medical school. Think yeah, putting not good about but putting your faith in God. Even if it's small. Maybe this will pay off. Maybe you can make it big. Basically. All right. So I think that's